Well, congratulations to all the winners so far. It's also my honor to be here tonight and to be co-presenting these prestigious awards, and also to share the stage with Richard Engel and John and Diane Foley, and we trust that James will be with us next year at this time. I also want to convey a personal message from Martha Raditz. She sends her deep regrets that she could not be here tonight. I happen to be married to Martha, so I can tell you that indeed she feels very disappointed that she couldn't make it tonight. So, but I got to share the stage with Richard Engel, which is a real payoff to me. So I'm going to be presenting, first of all, two awards that are actually going to the same group of journalists. This is quite an extraordinary achievement. They have won 2 awards for the same reporting project about a massacre in the village of Dos Erres in Guatemala 2 days ago. It's a team from WBEZ's This American Life, ProPublica, and Fundacion MEPI. And the radio version, the Lowell Thomas Award for Radio News, which was for coverage on This American Life, goes to Brian Reed, Habiba Nashin, Sebastian Rotella, and Ana Arana. They all worked together to produce this winning broadcast, and accepting the radio award is Brian Reed of WBEZ.
This is Sebastian Rotella from ProPublica. This is Annie Coriel, who worked with us at This American Life as a researcher, Habiba Nashin, who co-reported the story for This American Life, and Ana Arana at Fundacion MEPI. Our story is about a Guatemalan immigrant named Oscar, who lives outside of Boston. And one day Oscar gets a phone call from a prosecutor in Guatemala saying essentially, "You're not who you think you are. The man you thought was your father is not your father. He actually was a lieutenant in a military squad that murdered your entire biological family, your 8 brothers and sisters, was involved in slaughtering your entire village of 200 or more people, and then stole you and raised you as his son." And as if that isn't enough news for Oscar to deal with, he's also told that actually his biological father happened to be out of town that day of the massacre and is alive. Atrocities and human rights abuses like the one that happened at Oscar's town, Dos Erres, are sadly a part of our world, as we can see from the recognition that reporters from Syria are getting tonight. And so our goal with this story was to look at something that happened 30 years ago and to talk to everyone we could who was involved in it for hours and hours, 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 interviews, to try and get inside the experience of it and what the emotions are, the complicated and sometimes unexpected emotions are that, that people feel who are touched by events like this. We talked to a woman who has spent 16 years investigating, trying to figure out what happened at Dos Erres, and she was telling us about how in the 90s she would go on the radio and ask people, anyone who knew anything about the massacre, to come forward and tell their story. And while she was telling us this, she kind of chuckled to herself. And we asked her, "Why are you chuckling?" And she said, "Sometimes I think I was too daring." She was laughing at how much danger she'd put herself in all those years ago. We spent 14 hours talking to 2 of the soldiers who participated in the massacre. One of them broke down crying and asked for forgiveness, and the other one had, strangely, a very different reaction. He was actually the first soldier in Guatemala to ever come forward and confess to a massacre, but yet he seemed to joke about being involved in the military and tell funny stories about his time in the military. And when we talked to Oscar, he amazingly wasn't angry at the father, the man he thought was his father, who had abducted him essentially. He was still very proud of him. And lastly, when we talked to Oscar's biological father, Tranquilino, who had spent 30 years after the massacre living alone in the jungle, thinking that his wife and 9 children had been killed, he explained that he basically had taken to drinking for many of those years, and that said, he told us, quote, "I thought I could drown all my sorrows, but then I found out that my sorrows could swim. It's a great honor to be here receiving this award from the Overseas Press Club, and thank you very much. And we owe a huge thanks to all the amazing people who helped us make this story possible. The amazing editors and producers at This American Life who worked with us, our translator researcher Annie, our production manager and operations director, but especially to all these people who agreed to talk to us for hours and hours, sometimes at personal risk to themselves, about very traumatic and horrible memories. And it's their openness and bravery that made this story possible. So thank you very much.
And I'm delighted to announce that the citation for the Lowell Thomas Award goes to my NPR colleagues Kelly McEvers, Deborah Amos, and Doug Roberts for NPR's coverage of Syria, which they spearheaded. And thank you. And now, meanwhile, while this group is still up here, the second award is the Joe and Laurie Dine Award for Human Rights, and it's for the additional multimedia documentation of this story. By the way, recently several soldiers involved in that raid were convicted, and the former Guatemalan president, Efrain Rios Montt, was indicted on charges of genocide. So it's clear that this story has leg. Now, accepting the Dine Award will be Ana Arana of Fundacion MEPI.
Hi. I know you guys have been listening to too many journalists accepting things and too long. I'll be short. I want to thank you for giving the award to the Dos Zetas. It's a multi-platform news project that included ProPublica, This American Life, and a new project in Mexico, which is an investigative journalism project that does bi-national, regional investigative journalism. And we brought the story to ProPublica before, and then we all did it together. It was, I think, we're very happy that what came out of this worked out the way it was going to work out. We imagined it was going to work out well, but it worked out even better than we thought because of the number of people and the amount of power that came in by using all these multi-groups from the US, including radio and ProPublica, and then also in the US and in Latin America. I think by the time we were finished, about 5 million people had listened to the piece or read the piece both in English and in Spanish, which had an amazing impact in terms of number of people who followed it. And what we can do at this time in terms of how foreign news is having a huge impact in American news is that this is the way to go. I think if we put good journalistic minds and resources together, what happened with Oscar, who luckily we now know, we found out in July last year, got him and his family received what is it? Asylum. I'm going like between Spanish and English. My head goes crazy. He received asylum, and I think it was directly linked to our story because most of the ICE applications for asylum go like silent. Nobody wants to listen to them because there are like too many of them. And then when you have a story that was published by ProPublica and also This American Life and had that many people sort of listening and following up, and most of my colleagues also choring it up with new stories that followed up the story, he got it. And I think for journalists, as we all know, when we get a story and then we get someone who actually happens to get something good out of that, which means that he's not going to get deported back to Guatemala with his children who were born in this country, that means a lot. I think Oscar's story is an important endeavor that it shows you that there's a lot we can do in terms of foreign news if we put together a lot of platforms at the same time with little money, less money than we would invest in the past. I mean, I'm a product of the 1980s in Central America. We don't have that kind of money anymore. We can do good stories now if we know how to do it creatively with different elements from different countries like we did this. And I think that's the future. Thank you.